I arrived early. Not to be in the way, but to settle in, to smile, to look like someone who belonged there. I had my hair set that morning, slipped into a soft beige dress with sleeves that hid the weight I'd carried for years. The gift was wrapped, the card signed, and my heels clicked softly on the marble as I stepped into the reception hall. No one greeted me. I scanned the room, round tables, name cards, in gold script floral centerpieces I'd paid for. I walked slowly, expecting to see mine, but each table I passed bore other names. A distant cousin, Emily's Pilates instructor, her mother's second husband. I kept walking until a boy in a two big tux and sneakers stopped me near the kitchen doors. "Are you Mrs. Albridge?" he asked, already pointing. "You're over here." He didn't meet my eyes. Just led me past the main seating area and toward a folding chair, plain, slightly dented, wedged between a tray rack and a trash bin. The seat was damp from a paper napkin that had soaked through. I picked it up, slowly, turned it over in my hands like I wasn't sure what I was holding. "Sorry," he mumbled. The bride didn't want too many visual distractions near the arch. I didn't respond. I sat. From where I was, I could see through the swinging kitchen door. Every time it opened, I caught flashes of fairy lights and floating candles, a glowing chandelier I helped upgrade after Emily said the barn venue felt too rustic. The music started. Laughter rose. I didn't recognize the band, another last-minute request I agreed to cover. And then I saw Daniel. He stood at the altar, straight-backed, grinning. Emily reached for his hands. Her mother dabbed at tears in the front row. I watched from behind trays of lukewarm shrimp and a stack of chipped dishes. He never looked for me. Not once. I crossed my hands in my lap, smoothed the fabric of my dress, and stared straight ahead. The scent of grease drifted from the kitchen. And just like that, I remembered what it took to get here. I used to tell Daniel we were a team. Back then, it was just the two of us in a one-bedroom rental with a leaky faucet and a heater that rattled like it was coughing. I worked night shifts at the hospital, slept in 2-hour blocks, and packed his lunches with handwritten notes so he wouldn't feel alone. When his asthma flared, I'd sit on the bathroom floor beside him, rubbing his back while the steam from the hot shower filled the room. He wanted a dinosaur-themed birthday party when he turned 5. I couldn't afford the decorations, so I stayed up 2 nights painting a cardboard T-Rex. He hugged me so tight that day I thought my ribs might crack. I taught myself to hem his jeans when he hit a growth spurt I couldn't keep up with. Skipped meals so he could have seconds. Sold the gold bracelet my mother left me so he could attend a summer science camp where they built rockets from soda bottles. He came home beaming, carrying a bent plastic trophy that said, "Most Curious." Every dollar I earned had a destination: school trips, cleats for soccer braces when his teeth began to shift. I never complained. I wanted him to rise higher than I ever could. And now he stood under a garland of white roses holding a woman's hand who didn't know what it meant to scrape by. He didn't glance toward the kitchen. Didn't wonder if his mother had eaten. Didn't see the folding chair with no place card. Just danced, smiled, kissed the woman he chose, and let her erase me with silk ribbons and floral centerpieces. I pressed my palms together and breathed slowly. Maybe it was the heat from the ovens or the sting behind my eyes, but something inside me felt like it was fraying at the edges. I'd spent years holding him up, and now I was the one hidden behind the door. Somewhere between the music and the laughter, my phone buzzed in my purse. When I checked it, I saw the message that changed everything. The reception was in full swing when my phone buzzed again. I almost didn't check it. I thought it might be another work notification, or maybe a forgotten happy wedding day from someone who hadn't realized I wasn't the bride. But it was from my niece, Lila. Just one line. "Did you see this?" And beneath it, a screenshot. It was a Venmo transaction. Emily to one of her bridesmaids. Caption: "His mom's covering everything. Might as well go big." Wedding vibes. I stared at it for a long time. The emojis weren't what broke me. It was the tone, casual, entitled, like I was a limitless ATM with a pulse. I didn't cry. Not even a tear. Instead, I started doing the math. The flowers $7, $200. The band $300 to $800. The photographer $5,000. Venue deposit rentals catering. Every upgrade she'd ever smiled through, always with that word elevated. She wanted the wedding to feel elevated, she'd said. And I made it happen. Quietly. Without asking for help. She never asked how much. Never offered to cover part of it. Daniel didn't either. I thought it was just oversight. Now I realized no. It was permission. Emily had given herself permission to take, and he had handed her the key. I sat there behind the kitchen, and for the first time in a very long time, I let the silence stretch. I let it grow heavy. I let myself sit in the discomfort of being used, not just overlooked. They never thought I'd find out. But I had, and suddenly, everything around me, the twinkle lights, the laughter, the expensive linen napkins folded into swans, felt like props in someone else's show. One I'd financed but wasn't allowed to appear in. The waitress dropped a slice of cake on my table with a plastic fork. Vanilla raspberry filling, Emily's favorite. I took a bite, swallowed it whole, and made a decision. The next day's payments hadn't gone through yet. I still had control of the ledger, and I knew exactly what to do with it. I still had the program. It was tucked in the side pocket of my purse, creased from being opened and folded again, damp at the corner where my palm had rested too long. I pulled it out. Cream cardstock, gold foil lettering. The kind of design you choose when you're trying to impress people who'll toss it in the trash on their way out. Welcome to the wedding of Emily Grace Montgomery and Daniel Reed Langley. I ran my finger over the names, slow and deliberate. Underneath, with love and gratitude to the bride's parents, Susan and Charles Montgomery. Then a list of the bridal party, her cousins, her college friends, a page of speeches and acknowledgments, her father's toast, her mother's reading the officiant's name in bold. Every detail polished, public, permanent. There was no mention of me. Not a thank you. Not a line. Not even a footnote. I flipped to the back, hoping for some small gesture. Nothing. Not even a special thanks tucked near the floral sponsors and bakery credit. I had paid for the venue, the flowers, the dress she wore. I paid for the chair she sat in while getting her makeup done. I paid for the photographer who never turned his lens toward me. Every dollar had been mine. And still, I was invisible. The final insult came days later when the photos were posted online. A curated album of perfection, golden hour lighting, candid laughter, champagne flutes, raised in joy. I clicked through quietly one image after the next. They had taken the family portraits without me. She stood between her parents, her hand on Daniel's chest, smiling like royalty. Behind them, the people they chose to honor shoulder to shoulder like a complete unit. I wasn't just forgotten. I was excluded. And I decided if I didn't have a place in their picture-perfect life, then they wouldn't have a place in mine. The next step would be quiet, but permanent. The air outside was cooler than I expected. Crisp. Still. I could hear the music faintly from the reception hall, someone testing the mic, laughter spilling through the cracks of a perfectly planned afternoon. I checked the time. 10 minutes before the vows. I stepped away from the side entrance past the catering truck and stood beside the row of potted hedges near the parking lot. From here, no one would see me, just the way they liked it. I pulled out my phone. The first call was to the florist. "Hi, this is Corinne Langley. Yes, I'm calling about the post-wedding arrangements, the floral displays for tomorrow's brunch." A pause. "Yes, we've already delivered the reception flowers. This is about the second order. I'm calling to cancel it." "No, I don't need a refund." "Yes, I'm sure. Thank you." I hung up. The second was to the photographer. Hi, I'm confirming we will not be needing coverage past the ceremony. Please cancel the extended hours we discussed. Yes. I understand that means no album, no evening coverage. That's fine. His voice caught. May I ask why I smiled, though he couldn't see it? Just a change in vision. The third call was to the venue coordinator. Hi, this is Corinne. I'm calling to cancel the extended bar service for the after party. Please close the bar after the dinner. No late service, no signature cocktails. Silence. Mrs. Langley, are you sure? I'm very sure. 3 calls. 3 clean cuts. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me bleed. Instead, I walked back through the gravel path back toward the building, where my seat still waited beside a tray of dirty plates. The lights had dimmed. The music had shifted, and as I pushed open the door and heard the officiant calling the guests to rise, I realized they would feel the absence soon enough. The first sign was the flowers. The brunch arrangements never showed. No centerpiece for the gift table. No floral runner for the sweetheart table. I heard Emily whispering to the planner, voice sharp, then rising. They confirmed yesterday, she hissed. I took a slow sip from my paper cup. Black coffee, burnt at the edges. The kind they keep in catering corners for vendors and kitchen staff. No one offered me anything else. 10 minutes later, the photographer packed up. I saw him near the patio, zipping his bag, muttering to his assistant. No golden hour shots. No sparkler exits. Just a hard stop. Emily's voice again. Wait, what? We're not done. We had portraits scheduled. I was only booked for 4 hours, he said. Not unkindly. Nothing beyond the ceremony was confirmed. She looked toward Daniel. He just stared, confused. Then came the music, or the lack of it. A scratchy silence filled the space where the cocktail hour playlist should have been. A tech assistant shrugged as he fiddled with the speaker cable. The DJ was scheduled for the after party, not this. Emily's hands were clenched now. Her smile kept slipping. The edges of her control fraying like old ribbon. I stayed in the same seat I'd been given, beside the swinging door. Between empty trays and used napkins. From here, I could see just enough. Daniel glanced my way once. Not with recognition, more like someone scanning a room for what's missing. But his eyes didn't stay. They never had. I finished the coffee, slowly folded the cup neatly, and tucked it in my handbag. They were flailing. And they had no idea why. Let them guess. Let them wonder where the cracks started. Let them realize the woman they shoved to the side had been holding it all together. And now she had simply stepped away. The house was cold when I got home. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I moved through the dark by memory, past the old sofa, past the table that still had a scratch from Daniel's science project, and into my bedroom. I opened the bottom drawer of the dresser where I'd tucked away things I wasn't ready to feel. There it was. A red folder bent at the corners, thick with papers I hadn't looked at in years. Insurance statements, old tax returns, a few photos of Daniel in 3rd grade with a missing tooth and a crooked smile. And tucked in the middle, folded twice, was the letter. Michael's handwriting was unmistakable. I'd found the envelope weeks after his funeral. I hadn't opened it. I'd been too tired, too raw, too busy holding everything together after he left. But now, the ache in my chest demanded something more than silence. I unfolded it slowly. Corinne, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry. For this. For all of it. I didn't tell you the truth because I thought I could bury it. I thought love could cover silence. But I was wrong. You were always the strong one. The steady one. I watched you carry things I couldn't. Thank you for raising Daniel like he was yours. You never needed reminding to love him. You just did. Even when I didn't deserve either of you. There was more. A few lines about regrets. A vague apology for being absent even when he was alive. But I didn't need the rest. I'd lived it. I'd survived it. What mattered were the words he chose before he died. He saw me. He knew. I had never needed anyone to tell me to love that boy. I changed diapers and cleaned vomit and held his hand through night terrors, not for praise, but because he was mine in every way that mattered. I placed the letter back in the folder, closed the drawer, and stood. I hadn't been erased. I had built something they couldn't take back. And now I would take something of my own. It came on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of quiet day when the world feels still enough to hear your own breathing. I was at the kitchen table folding laundry when I heard it, 3 short knocks, sharp and steady. I already knew who it was. I opened the door. Daniel stood there, rumpled and red-eyed, the glow from the wedding long gone. He looked older, tired. He didn't speak right away, just looked at me like he expected something, an apology maybe, or a door slammed in his face. I gave him neither. "You embarrassed us," he said finally. His voice was low but strained. "Emily's family's furious. Guests are still talking about what happened. The band, the flowers, the photos. What were you trying to prove?" I didn't answer with words. I turned, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out the box I'd prepared days ago. One by one, I placed its contents on the coffee table between us. Printed receipts, vendor emails, canceled invoices, and on top of it all, the letter. His father's handwriting unmistakable. Daniel stared at it, not reaching. "I gave you everything I said," my voice calm. "Every shift I worked, every dollar I saved. I gave you holidays, birthdays, a home. And when the moment came to acknowledge me, just acknowledge me, you chose silence." His mouth opened, closed again. He looked down at the letter, then back at me. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I said. "You let her decide what was convenient. And you let me disappear because it made the pictures prettier." He picked up the letter, read the first lines, then stopped. He didn't cry, but something in his face cracked. "You raised me," he whispered. "That still counts. Then act like it does," I said. "Not just when you're caught in the consequences." I didn't wait for more. I pushed the box gently toward him. "These are yours now." He stood carrying the weight of it awkwardly in both hands. I opened the door. And this time, I was the one who watched him walk away. The house smelled like garlic and roasted tomatoes. A soft song hummed from the speakers. Nothing grand, just something easy. Something mine. I'd set the table with mismatched plates and cloth napkins folded neatly. No centerpieces, no polished silver, just intention. They arrived one by one. Mr. Dillard from next door brought a pie he'd baked himself. Janet, the nurse I used to work night shifts with, carried a bottle of red wine and a smile that reached her eyes. And Nora, my friend from the bookstore, hugged me like I'd come home. We sat down without speeches or toasts, just the scrape of chairs and the clinking of glasses. I passed the bread. Someone asked about the recipe. Someone else shared a story about their grandson gluing plastic dinosaurs to the coffee table. We laughed until our ribs hurt. And for once, I didn't have to earn my seat. There were no photographers, no head tables, no whispered decisions about the theme, just real people and a meal made with care. I wasn't waiting to be acknowledged. I wasn't watching from the kitchen. I was here, at the table, present. When the sun dipped low, I strung up the porch lights I'd bought last fall and never used. We brought our coffee outside and wrapped ourselves in blankets. The conversation wandered old movies, second chances, late-night cravings. It felt like life, not a role. I caught myself smiling at nothing. Not the kind of smile you force when someone hands you cold chicken on chipped china, but the kind that sneaks up on you when your soul exhales. Daniel hadn't called since the day he left with the box. And that was fine. I didn't need closure wrapped in guilt or half-spoken apologies. I needed this. People who saw me, a table where I belonged. Not because I paid for it, but because I was me. I poured another cup of coffee, let the warmth settle into my hands, and listened to the laughter drift into the night. The porch lights flickered, and I didn't feel forgotten. I felt full. I took the photos down one by one. Not in anger, not in grief, just readiness. The frame that once held Daniel's kindergarten graduation gone. The one of us at the county fair, his face painted like a tiger. My hair wind-blown, boxed up. I wrapped the glass in old dish towels and slid each memory into a bin labeled past. Not forgotten. But no longer dictating the walls I lived within. I left the nails empty. For the first time in years, my living room wasn't a shrine to someone else's milestones. It was light. Space. Mine. I opened the windows wide that afternoon, let the sunlight spill across the floor, turned on the record player. Nina Simone's voice filled the air, soft, defiant, utterly whole. I brewed coffee. Real coffee? Not the instant kind I used to survive night shifts, but beans I ground myself. I sat by the window and drank slowly, no one needing me to be anywhere else, no calendar squares begging to be filled with errands or reminders to remember who I was to someone else. Daniel never called again, and I never checked to see if he would. There was no scene, no dramatic goodbye, just space where expectation used to sit. I didn't stop being his mother. I stopped being only that. I read again books that weren't parenting guides or wedding contracts. I planted marigolds, took a pottery class on Wednesday nights, learned how to roast fennel without burning it, laughed with strangers in checkout lines. People still called me Mom. Sometimes Janet's son, the neighbor's twins. But it didn't define me. Not anymore. What did? The way I hummed while cooking. The blank walls waiting for new stories. The porch light I left on for myself when coming home late from the library. I didn't need a role to fill or a spotlight to share. I was no longer waiting in the wings. I was on my own stage. And for once, the script was mine.